What is HOA? Is it mandatory? How much are the HOA fees when selling a home? Today, I'm going to talk about everything that you need to know when selling or buying a home with an HOA. Hey, welcome to my channel. This is Reyna Fullerton. I'm a real estate agent here in Houston, Texas with Jerry Fullerton Realty. I post new videos every week. If this is your first time, consider subscribing to my channel. HOA is the acronym for Homeowners Association. It's a private association created to protect and preserve the value of the neighborhood. Is it always the case? Not necessarily. Some associations are more strict than others, and some are pricier than others as well. If the neighborhood that you're looking into has an HOA and is a mandatory HOA, you don't have a choice. You have to become part of the HOA in order to live on that property. To be a part of the association, you have to pay your monthly dues, or it could be in some instances annual dues. One of the upside of buying an HOA is taking advantage of the community amenities such as pools or sports club. They may have a gated community. That means your HOA fee is going to be a little bit higher. Here in Texas, some HOAs are voluntary. Majority of them, however, are mandatory. How do you find that out? If you're working with an agent, they will let you know up front. And if you're not, make sure that you talk to the listing agent or the seller and find out if the property is affected by an HOA and how much the HOA dues are. I run into some buyers that love living in HOA communities. And I also run into some buyers that don't like to live in an HOA because they feel that the HOA will rule what they can do or not with their home. And that could have some truth. If you know the rules from the get-go, then there's no surprises. You know what you're dealing with, and you know what you need to abide by. How do you determine if an HOA community may be the best fit for you? It all depends on what you're looking for and what you're willing to pay for. Every HOA has their own fees, their own rules. Some are more strict than others, and some are more expensive than others. So you have to find that out before you submit an offer. That way you can negotiate with the seller who's gonna pay what. In brand new neighborhoods, it's gonna be kind of hard to gauge if the HOA is gonna really enforce the rules and regulation. However, on an established neighborhood, it's gonna be a little bit easier. As you drive in the neighborhood, you're gonna see if they really enforce it and if this is the environment that you feel comfortable living in. How do you find out what the rules of the game are? There are documents available to you that will give you all this information, but they're not free. However, this can all be negotiated in the contract. The resale package, it contains all the bylaws, rules and regulations, all the architectural guidelines, and it also contains the resale certificate. All that in one package. Some associations will sell this as a packet, and some of them will sell them a la carte. So you can get the resale certificate by itself for a price, and you can get the resale package on its own. Why is it important to know this information? Because the good news for sellers specifically is that in Texas, the bylaws and the rules and regulations are public records. They can get those for free. Another way of getting it is by going into your HOA portal and downloading all the latest versions of the bylaws, the rules and regulations, and everything that has to do with the HOA. If you don't know where to go, you can ask your HOA. As an owner, you should have access to those. And if not, this is the tip of the day. Whenever you open escrow, you ask title that along with the preliminary title report, they send you a copy of the CCNRs because they do affect title. The CCNRs is the convenience, conditions, and regulations that have all the guidelines that affect that HOA. As a seller, if you get this and you have it ready, you just provide it as soon as you get an offer. And the only thing that will be pending is the resale certificate. That's why it was important to find out if that HOA sells the resale certificate separate. So whenever you're ready to purchase a home, you should request those. If you're not working with an agent, then you have to do a little bit of legwork and contact the HOA. The resale certificate is gonna outline how much the HOA charges, how often do they charge it, how much is the outstanding balance for the seller so that we can close. And especially, and most importantly, it's gonna tell you if there's any pending violations. As a buyer, I will never, ever, ever buy a house or represent a buyer that is trying to buy a house without having the resale certificate. I want to make sure that we know if there is any violations and that I ask that seller to fix those violations prior to closing. The resale certificate is going to contain how much the HOA charges, how often do they charge it, how much is the outstanding balance for the seller. We need that amount in order to close. It will also give you information on any type of litigation that the HOA may be involved in. The resale package is a lot of pages. Take the time to read it. This is important because these are the rules that you guys are going to be abiding for the next 7 or 10 years that you're going to be living in that community. As per the HOA addendum that we as agents use, the buyers has 3 days to review these documents, and they can terminate because of that. Maybe they don't like the rules. They think they're too strict. They can cancel. They just learned that information. Some of the older associations here in Texas indicate that the seller is responsible for taking care of the curb. That could be pricey. So I want to know that up front if it's something that we have to negotiate. Now, if you feel that you don't need the resale certificate, then title will still need some sort of documentation to identify how much the seller owes on the house. That is called the statement of account. However, that will not tell you if there's any pending violations, and that I think is very important, but it's up to you. Now, we also need to find out how much the HOA transfer fee costs. This is a one-time fee that the HOA charges to transfer ownership. That is also negotiated in the contract. Some communities may have a second HOA. So if they do have a second HOA, you also need the resale package and a resale certificate for the second one. And there's also going to be a transfer fee for that second one. You need to keep all these expenses in mind because the resale certificate and the resale package are going to be upfront costs that you're going to have to pay before you buy the property. So make sure that your due diligence has passed. That way you're not out of pocket on that money. A few communities here in Texas also have an assessment fee that is charged by the developer, which is usually what I've seen, 0.5% to 1% of the sales price. That could be pricey, and that you will know upfront as well. What are my key takeaways for this topic? Read the rules and regulations, get the resale certificate. I hope that this video answered every question that you had in regards to buying a house in an HOA community. If you feel that I missed anything, please make sure to comment and let me know. I will make sure to elaborate in a future video. If you're thinking about buying a home, make sure to click on the link below and download my checklist for home buyers. Before you go, if you feel that you learned something new at this video, consider subscribing to my channel. Also ring on the bell button. That way you will be notified every time that I post a new video. See you guys next week.